All right, welcome to my first car podcast. Today we have a special guest, Mike Satterfield, the gentleman racer. Mike, how are you?
Doing well. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. We are unfortunately not joined by my co-host Dan, who is out of commission.
Okay. Well, hopefully nothing
Yeah,
too serious.
he's dead.
Oh, wow.
No, he's fine. He's okay.
Good.
Yeah. So it's just the two of us tonight. I hope nobody minds that. But so the gentleman racer, tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it's kind of started like in the early days of the internet. I was doing photography of cars back when I had to like take film photos and scan them in and upload them to the website. And it just kind of grew from there until like I have a lifestyle. I basically kind of get to tell the car stories that I want to tell there. So cool car stuff, a lot of travel, adventure, motorcycle road trips, stuff like that. And it's been a fun thing. It's become its own entity. It's been pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome. If anyone's interested, please check out thegentlemanracer.com. You got Instagram stuff, you have the website with like a blog style update thing. There's YouTube videos, there's a whole bunch of cool stuff up there. So that's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a lot of fun putting it all together.
Now, we are here to talk about clothing. Your first
Yeah.
piece of clothing. No, I'm joking. Your first car. I obviously don't want to know that yet. The people know the order that we go in here. But you mentioned before we recorded that you had 100+ cars.
Yeah, it's about 138, almost 140 roughly. One of them I'm kind of on the fence of counting because we never really got it put together. But yeah, I mean I've had a lot of cars over the years, and it's been you kind of name it, I've kind of had something or something close to it. So there's no like rhyme or reason to it. It's not like I was the Mustang guy who only had Mustangs. I've had like everything, just because the weirder it is, the better.
That's incredible. Now, one question, don't obviously name any names, but how many cars do you have in possession today?
Currently, I have three. So
Okay. So
yeah,
it's not
pretty
like
reasonable.
you have 100 of them sitting somewhere today.
No, I get so bored of them. Like my favorite part is like getting the car, figuring out what makes it kind of weird and unique and interesting, and fixing it up, and then I'm kind of done with it, and then I push it on to someone else to go enjoy.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's get into it. I'm curious. I don't know where you want to start, beginning or end, but go ahead.
Well, I guess my current car, my project I'm almost done with. I actually was just talking to some guys about getting the body work finally wrapped up on it. Is a '62 Austin Healey Sprite Special.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird car. This guy in Manhattan Beach back in the '60s was going to be like the Carroll Shelby of Austin Healey Sprites and midgets and stuff,
Uh-huh.
and I guess never really took off. So he built two or three of these cars from what I've been able to track down, and this is one of them. And it's kind of a cool, funky car with this fiberglass front end that's one piece and hood scoop and no windshield, and just kind of a really cool, funky '60s little race car. So that's my kind of like passion project. I've had that car actually for about 5 years now, and it's that's a long term commitment for me with cars. So it's one of those cars I think I'll probably hang on to.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Now, you're West Coast, right?
Actually, I'm in Texas now. I was in
Oh.
California for a long time, and I just moved this year to Texas. So yeah, I'm right in the dead center of the state and about right in the middle of the country now.
So either one of those, you're not dealing with the type of rust and wear and tear that we have up here.
No, no, definitely not. No, that was one good thing was most of the cars I didn't have a lot of metal work to do from rotted out floors and frame rails and stuff like that. So
That's funny that you buy an older style car here, and your biggest concern is going to be, the rotting out floors.
yeah, definitely. No, I went to college in Michigan, so I've seen plenty of rusted out cars, and it's amazing some of the things that people still drive around in the winter there.
Oh yeah, yeah, no floors.
Yeah.
All right, so next one.
Well, I guess like another significant car for me was my last big SEMA show project car, which that one got a lot of coverage and kind of people kind of connected me to, and that was a '67 Ford Fairlane
Oh wow.
that we built, and it was a super cool car because literally it was a two-door, no post fastback '67 Fairlane, six-cylinder, three on the tree, pretty much plain Jane car, and we got the car in June for $500.
Oh my god.
It was parked behind some guy's house, and actually how I got it was he came to my old studio space in California, was knocking on the door, and like nobody comes there because we don't have like public access. It's just like we do all kinds of design work and stuff there, and we don't really have a walk-in showroom. So it's kind of weird to have someone beating on the door. And the guy was like, "Hey, are you the guy who buys old cars?" And like the answer is always like, "What do you have?"
Yeah.
So he ended up having a '67 Ford Fairlane, and I picked that car up, and it was in really good condition because it had been parked for about 20 years. But we got it in June, and we completely transformed it and had it at the SEMA show that November.
Wow.
And it was a blitz, the SEMA crunch, all that stuff. But the cool thing about that car was the cars I really do full builds on, I try to do like an alternative history with. So this was like, had Holman Moody been sent to European touring car. So
Okay.
it was Gulf racing colors. It was really garish and like really like just loud in your face, like kind of NASCAR style. But it had like a lot of like little European touches, like a Le Mans gas cap and just some nice clean little details that really made it pretty unique. And of course a big block Ford and a TKO 600 Tremec transmission and all the resto mod stuff, so it actually kind of stop and kind of turn. So yeah, fun car though, and it was a blast building it.
That sounds incredible. I think Dan would love that car.
It's pretty cool. It was one of those cars you couldn't really take anywhere because you just had to add an extra like 35 to 40 minutes to your trip because every time you parked it, someone would want to sit there and talk to you about it for 20 minutes. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a cool car though, a lot of
That's
fun.
awesome. Okay.
And then from there, I mean, yeah, my other kind of big car that I had for a long time that a lot of people kind of knew me for was my other SEMA show car, and that was a '69 Mini Cooper.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. We built it all out, like, and it was wrapped, and we had it wrapped by this really kind of when wraps were kind of newer in 2012. There wasn't a lot of like full printed and kind of custom wraps. It was like a lot of single color stuff like that. But we found a guy who was willing to print this camouflage outfit that we did. It was all different colors of like British racing green, and we wrapped this Mini Cooper in like all the shades of British racing green camo. And it was cool. It was in a booth at the SEMA show in South Hall, and it was just so much fun. We used to run Formula Ford racing tires on it so we could go up in the canyons and just really push it. And it was a blast. It was probably one of my favorite cars that I actually built, and then I liked it so much I kept it for about 3 or 4 years.
Now, it's not called a convertible, but does it have the roof that folds back?
Yeah, it had the Webasto top.
There we go.
Yeah, the big Webasto top. Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, it was a combination of a lot of different parts. So like I think the top came from like a mid '90s like Mini, and the engine was from a '60s S, and it was a lot of those cars were kind of cobbled together. So
Wow.
yeah, it was still a blast to drive, and it ended up that was one of those cars like I probably should have kept that one.
That's cool. I gotta check out all these pictures, and I'm assuming any of these are gonna be up on your website, right?
Yeah, the bulk of them. I mean, if you search for like Project Car or Mini, it'll come up. Yeah, and then there's sections for those. But yeah, there's always just something fun about the Mini Cooper. It was one of those cars you could take to like a Lamborghini car show, and everyone would stop looking at that and go look at this tiny, ridiculous little car because it was just so different. And especially like in Southern California, I mean, you'd see them every once in a while, but you never saw them. I mean, other parts of the world you see them all the time, but in the U.S., Mini Cooper's pretty rare.
What do you think of where Mini Cooper's gone today, like modern cars?
I mean, it's not a Mini. They're kind of cool. I mean, they're fun little hot hatchbacks. They're nice little cars, but they're not they're not the iconic Mini that they once were. I mean, they're really cool, but I haven't owned one, so
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I didn't have that need to go buy one. Like it was on my list of cars I wanted to have. Like there's just certain iconic cars like Mini Coopers, Mustang fastbacks, stuff that are just kind of timelessly cool.
Yeah,
And,
I'd put the original Beetle in there as well.
Oh yeah, I mean the Beatles, one of those big icons that I mean what they built them from like 1940s to the mid 90s in Mexico. I mean it's crazy.
And they're still going, kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, actually, how I got into cars was really my dad. My dad has always worked in the industry, and he still actually works. He's at SEMA this week with his company that he's the general manager for, and they do Volkswagen interiors and all that stuff. So I kind of grew up with all these cars coming in and out from the SEMA show back when I was a kid, and that's kind of what really got me into with cars. And my dad always had like an old Mustang Fastback. I remember he had a yellow, grabber yellow Mach 1. He had a really cool S10 back when those were new, like the S10 Chevy pickup
Oh
trucks. It was
yeah.
all mini trucked out for a SEMA show. And so I don't know, I just kind of grew up with it, and it was just one of those things where, like, I don't know, I never got that brand loyalty. Like, you meet those people who are like, I'm a Ford guy, or I'm a Chevy guy, or it's Mopar or no car, those guys. And for me, like, I always loved to, like, explore what made each car different, because somebody was passionate about building whatever car it was, and somebody was passionate about designing it and creating it and serving whatever purpose it was designed for. So I always loved to kind of figure out why that was, whether it was the terrible Maserati bi-turbo that I had, or the really quirky Renault Alliance that I had. I mean, it was just fun because somebody somewhere put passion and design and time into that car. So it was always kind of fun to figure out what made each car special.
Yeah. No, actually, that brings up a question that is kind of relevant to your car history. But I've had some conversations recently with some people, specifically towards electric cars, and you're talking about obviously all vehicles at some point have somebody who's put some passion into it, whether it's design or engineering or something. How do you feel that translates to electric cars like Teslas?
Yeah, the Tesla's created its own really interesting, following. It's almost cult like. I mean, we all know that, like, Tesla fanboy who replies to anything that's posted online about Tesla and Elon, and it's really interesting. I mean, the cars are really fast. They're really exciting. The technology is getting better every day. They're here to stay. I mean, I think the Jaguar I-Pace just won like a bunch of awards for like top, like not top electric car, but like top SUV in Europe. So
Yeah.
that's pretty impressive. That they're competing on the world stage of all their contemporaries, and they're coming out on top in certain cases. I mean, we're never going to have that same feeling you get when you get behind the wheel of like the new Alfa Romeo or the new Maserati Levante or any of those, because you got that noise and that kind of just visceral reaction. But the speed's still there, and the level of quality and comfort and everything's there. I guess it's just different things for different people.
Yeah. I'm excited about Tesla. I'm not a fanboy who's going to respond to everything, but I do consider myself a little bit of electric car fanboy, just because I like the concept behind it. I like the speed that comes with it,
Yeah.
the efficiency and all that stuff. But I think it's really cool what they're doing and pushing. It's pushing the envelope of what other manufacturers have to do
Oh, no
to keep
doubt.
up.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they've pushed the envelope so far and so fast that General Motors and Ford had to kind of like, oh wow, that's a real thing. I guess we should kind of make something. And they've come out with some great cars. Like the Chevy Bolt is actually a great car.
Yeah.
The BMW i8 is a phenomenal car. I mean, there's a lot of great cars that have come out. And I don't think we would have any of that without Tesla pushing the envelope on that.
No, yeah, because we've had electric cars like Jay Leno has, I think, an electric car from the 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s. They've been around forever.
Most people don't realize that General Electric actually had interchangeable batteries and battery stations back in like the early turn of the century. And it was just, again, they just didn't have the infrastructure compared to what they could do with a gasoline motor back then. And there's still that argument today that, I've been on road trips where, like, I'm in the middle of the desert and I pass these guys that are, parked in a Burger King parking lot at the supercharger, waiting there for, 45 minutes while I can just stop and fill up and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So, the infrastructure thing is there. I think we'll see a lot of shift in the way people use cars, or if they have multiple vehicles and they have like a city vehicle and then maybe like a more, a gas vehicle. It's just a weekend car or a pleasure vehicle or a long distance cruiser. I think there's a lot to be made for that type of case, where you have like your electric city car and then you have something else that is just really an accessory or a vehicle that's just for fun.
Yeah. That's. I think in my dream world, I would have. Dan would hate this, but I would have a pickup truck for utility purposes and my family and everything, an electric car, and probably a stupid fun sports car type thing.
Yeah. No, I mean that'd be ideal. Like my daily driver right now is a BMW 1 Series, and it's a great car. I love it. It's one of my favorite cars that I've had for like a daily driver, because I got an automatic because when I live in the LA area, I was like, I'm not sitting in that 4 hours of traffic and shifting, anything. Like I'll turn on the heated seat and I'll just relax for an hour and a half, 2 hours while I sit there. But it's different cars. Like I would drive that car, daily for stuff like going to the grocery store, or going to the office or meetings. But I would take out the Fairlane, or I would take my one of my Mustangs when I had Mustangs, and that's what I would drive on the weekends. I had a Canyon Carver, so I always had something else. So yeah, I think that the multi-vehicle family is the way to go.
I agree. All right, so we were at the Mini Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
What's after that one?
Well, I guess, the car that I really, before that I drove a lot, and it was back in the pre-Fast and the Furious days, I guess. Here in Southern California, we had a place called Ontario, which was not far from where I grew up, that had a big street racing scene back when I was a kid. And, not that anyone should ever do anything like that ever, because it's bad and illegal.
Yeah.
But well, it was funny because pre-Fast and Furious, everybody had like their little cliques they were in. And it was kind of funny, like my friends like, hey, Paul Walker made it okay for me as like a blonde white guy to drive a Nissan. I was like, yeah, I guess so, Because, you go to these things and it was all cliques. You had like certain groups that had Mustangs, certain groups that had Camaros, certain groups had Grand Nationals. Yeah. And then, you had guys who had the Honda Civics with the B18 swaps in them and stuff like that. But me being me and being weird, I had a Peugeot 405.
What?
So, yeah, so I had this 19, I think it was a 1998 Peugeot 405 that was bright French racing blue, and I actually tracked down like all these Peugeot sport parts for it. So I had like a Peugeot sport steering wheel, and of course, it was the time I had the big odometer tack on it with the blue light, and
yep.
The whole 9 yards, big spoiler, and it was fun because I could drive it out there and nobody knew what it was.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of a fun car, and that car was funny because I kept it kind of as like a backup vehicle because after that car I got a job at a place called California Mustang that did Mustang parts. They were pretty big back in the day, and I got hired to kind of be their import tuner guy, but for the Ford Focus that had just come out. And this Ford Focus, that I bought was like the first generation, the 2000. I think it was called the Kona edition. So it was like a dirt metallic. It was a cool car, but the 2000 Ford Focus had so many problems. So I always had the Peugeot as like my backup car because my Peugeot was more reliable than my brand new Ford.
Oh, wow.
And it was pretty bad. But the Focus we used for like test mules and building stuff, and it was fun. But I remember the Peugeot, my best friend had needed a car. So his car, he had a 240 that we were swapping an SR20 into. And his car was down, and I was like, yeah, just take the Peugeot. I had like 6 cars at the time. I was like, yeah, just take it. So he took the Peugeot, and I completely forgot about it. And like a year later, he brought it back. I was like, oh yeah, I guess that's where that car's been. And he'd done brakes on it and taken care of it and all, but it was just like it was just one of those cars like everybody just kind of kept it, and it finally died. Out on a canyon road, we were running it really hard, and we finally like blew a timing belt on it and cooked the head.
Yeah.
And after that, it was like it's not worth fixing because it was a 1990s Peugeot. So off it went to help other Peugeots survive. So
yeah,
a parts car for people.
That's incredible.
That was a fun car.
Wow, a Peugeot, and just I guess that's Ontario, California, right? Mm-hmm. Ontario Reign play there.
Yep, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The LA Kings farm team.
named after Ontario, Canada. We were founded by
really
the Chaffee brothers. Yep, they named the city after their home province when they came down to California.
I had no idea.
Yeah, a lot of people see the Ontario CA and they're like, "Oh, you're from Canada." It's like, no, that's Ontario, California.
That's interesting. I'm learning about cars. I'm learning about geography and United States. That's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. Yeah, it was a big street racing scene. If you Google like Ontario street races back in the day, it was pretty wild. It got so crazy there. They actually had to like put in speed bumps in all the areas, and like they forced businesses like gas stations that everyone would meet at to like close. Like they weren't allowed to be open after 10 o'clock at night. Like it was pretty wild.
Yeah, I just did a quick Google, and it's there. There's a lot of history there. That's interesting.
But yeah, I mean, before that, I was really into muscle cars. So I had like my car I kind of drove through high school. It was like my main car that I had. was a 67 Ford Galaxy.
Oh, you drove that to
Yeah.
high school. Nice.
Yeah, a 67 Ford Galaxy 500 fastback. Super cool car because it had all those windows that rolled down, so just everything opened up, and it was a 390 big block. And I worked for this guy who had a little speed shop in town called Amazing Mustang, and he's no longer there. But I used to go and work over there with him. He'd go to the Pomona swap meet, and I'd have to go work swap meets with him and sell car parts and stuff like that. And I remember I worked for him for a while, and the deal was if I worked for him for like 2 or 3 swap meets, he'd give me the tri-power setup for my car. So we ended up doing that and put the tri-power on it. And it was a fun car. They got like 6 miles to the gallon, but it didn't matter because it was just so much fun to drive.
That's awesome. And it's huge too, right?
Oh yeah, it was like 22 feet long or something. It was ridiculously huge. And 2 doors. Like, it was just gigantic.
Wow, that's cool. I drove an Eagle Talon to high school.
Oh, those are kind of fun.
Finally, somebody that agrees with me. Dan hates them. He thinks they're stupid.
Well, I mean, it was just that rebadged Mitsubishi that, exploded all the time. So
Mine didn't explode, so it's okay.
I've got friends who are really into that body style of the Eclipses, and we always would tease them. We'd Photoshop their cars on transport trucks and getting towed away and all that good stuff. But
the original Eclipses or the 95, or was it 98 that they changed the body style? I can't remember.
No, the original, the earlier ones. Yeah, the first generation ones.
And mine was in 1990, so the first year they made them.
Wow, that's pretty. That's a kind of a cool car, though. I mean, that was that weird era when everyone would just kept kind of badge engineering and releasing new brands. And
it's funny to look back now and remember. Yeah, because it was the Eagle Talon, the Mitsubishi Eclipse, and the Plymouth Laser were all the same car.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, or just a little bit after, we had the Intrepid had like 3 different badges.
Yeah.
We
used to have Dodge, and then we used to have Neon.
Yep.
We had the Chrysler Neon.
Yep.
The Plymouth. Plymouth was existing back then. Yeah. No, I mean, what's funny is like I had the pre-runner to the Talon and all that. I had a Plymouth Conquest, which was the Mitsubishi Starion, and that car was ridiculous. That was so much. I think the thing I loved most about it was that it said turbo all over it. Like the door handle said turbo, the dash said turbo, the seatbelt said turbo. Like, you knew this thing had a turbo on it.
That one always reminded me of the Daytona.
Yeah, it's very similar to that Daytona body style, yeah.
I guess
it was a cool car, though.
Yeah.
I actually got that car for, I traded a guy a carbon fiber spoiler for it. So, yeah, it was kind of one of those weird deals. The guy really wanted a wing for his 240, and I had it. So I was like, yeah, he traded me a car.
That's incredible. Wow.
What's so funny is I've had so many of those kind of weird deals, though, over the years, because I've just kind of been known as, like, the car guy. So people... would reach out to me and said, hey, there's this car over here, go talk to this guy, or people just contact me and want to sell me something or even give me something. I think the best car I ever got for free was a 1971 Mustang sports roof. It was this white, like the Wimbledon white with the vermilion red interior, 351 Cleveland, pretty much base options though, there's nothing else on it, but automatic, but complete car. And this guy had come by and he'd asked, because he saw me working on some other cars. He said, "Yeah, one of these guys who used to work for me had this car and he left it at my shop. It's been like 6 or 7 years. If you'll haul it away." So I basically went over there and picked it up and ran a lien sale on it and got the car for nothing. And we literally just like swapped a battery in it, changed fluids, and it fired right up. So that was a great deal. We had a lot of fun ripping around in that thing. That
car has always confused me because I'm a huge fan of like 67 Mustangs, Shelby, GT500. And even I like the Mach 1, like the later years Mach 1, but the 71 sports roof, like the shape of it, I have so many mixed feelings about if I like it or...
Well, it's so big, and the thing that's funny is like, you'll see it one day, you'll be walking by, you're like, yeah, that looks pretty good.
Yeah.
And then you'll see it another day, like, gosh, that thing is just Mobus. It's so weird. I think it's whatever angle you look at it from.
Yeah, it's super confusing. I'm not sure.
And they look good with like the Nakaduck hood and like the Mach 1 spoiler, but if they don't have like or the Boss packages with the cool stripes, it really needs like to have like top level trimmed, like look decent.
Yeah, or color work. Yeah, because some of these colors are just brutal on it.
Yeah, have you seen some of the customized ones like that? I think there was a guy who did like an Eleanor version, like
oh really?
Like the Gone in 60 Seconds, like '67 Shelby style, but he tried to do it on a '71 3 car, and it looked so goofy. Like, it had the big bump on the hood, which it didn't need, and yeah, it was pretty bad.
But wasn't Eleanor in the Nicolas Cage movie? Wasn't that a Mach 1 that they restyled?
No, in the Nicolas Cage movie, it was supposed to be like a '67 GT500.
Yeah, it was supposed to be that, but the actual car.
Well, no, because the Mach 1 didn't come out until '69. So it was a '67-8 just fastback that they restyled. But in the original Gone 60 Seconds, it was a '73 sports roof. But yeah, in the remake, it was a '67 just fastback that they made look like a kind of a GT500.
Kind of, yeah. Very
yeah, because I mean, there was nothing GT500 on the car other than the Shelby emblems.
Yeah. All right, so we've made it to high school.
Yeah.
You told me earlier you started getting cars around 14 years old?
Yeah, so I bought my first car when I was 14.
That's
and
crazy.
It was one of those things where I'd always wanted cars, and I'd always like anything that moved. Like when I had a bicycle, I was on it, I was gone. Motorcycle, I was on it, I was gone. I wanted to go somewhere, I wanted to go places, I wanted to go fast. And I was basically mowing lawns and stuff for extra cash, so I had a couple $100 saved up, and I was riding my bicycle through the dairy kind of farmland that I grew up in, and there was this guy who had an old bunch of, like, he was one of those old guys who like would buy a car, drive it for a while, and then he'd park it, and then he'd bought the next car. So like he had like every car that he'd bought from like the mid 50s up until like the 70s, just kind of parked back behind his house. I mean, and there was everything back there from like old Chevrolets to like an Austin America, like just kind of a weird mix of cars. But basically every car the guy had ever bought, he had just, parked in the back when he bought his new car and bought a new car.
Wow.
So I was riding my bicycle by, and I stopped in and said, hey, are any of those old cars for sale? And he thought I was kind of goofy being a kid, but he's like, yeah, I'll sell you one of them. So kind of went and poked around and looked and kind of found one that I liked, and ended up picking out my first car.
Ooh.
And it was a 1954 Ford Crestline.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was gigantic. It was a 4-door Ford Crestline. It had the first year with power windows that Ford ever offered power windows in the Ford lineup. So they were interesting because they kind of shot up and down really fast, but the guy only charged me $150 for the car.
Holy crap.
And he still had the original pink slip from when he bought it new, like from the local Ford dealer there in the area. So I got all the paperwork with it and everything, and I went and got the farm truck, which we were allowed to drive when we were on official farm business.
Of course. So
we made that farm business, and we went and got the truck and hooked a strap on it. Me and my buddy, towed the thing home a couple blocks from where it was, and we basically spent that whole summer just dinking around with it. My dad's like, "Yeah, you guys can do anything you want, and you know where the auto parts store is. Go up and get what you need." And we changed all the fluids in it. It had the oil bath air filter, so we had to figure out what the hell that was,
Wow.
How all that worked. But learned how to rebuild the carburetor and ordered a fuel pump for it and cleaned out all the fuel tank and fuel lines, and we got it running.
Wow.
And it was a great car. I mean, it was, again, built by a 14-year-old who had no idea what he was doing. So like the body work was sketchy. There was a lot of Bondo and maybe a little bit of newspaper, paper mache-ish kind of stuff in there. But we got it together, got it running, spray painted it back to white, and
it was white, eh?
Yeah, it was white with white interior.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And at some point it had been reupholstered, so the interior was actually in pretty good shape. But we ended up driving it around, kind of goofing off with it, and I parked it out by our barn with a for sale sign on it just to see what I could get for it. And I ended up selling it for like $1,500.
Oh wow!
So I was like, "Hey, this is pretty cool. I can like play with cool cars."
Oh, and that started
and like make 10 times my money. This is awesome. So that kind of like kicked it all off. And from there it was just I took that money and bought 2 more cars, and then flipped one of them and drove one of them for a little while, and flipped them and kept going, and I've had some big kind of crazy like multi-car deals that I've come across, and it's just kind of been a hobby ever since, I guess.
I think your car purchasing life should be in a TV show or something.
That would be great. Yeah, that would be kind of fun. I think the craziest deal I think I ever structured was 6 cars.
What?
And it was from this guy who like like his house was all overgrown, like like he was rich at one point and then like stopped paying all of his bills, and Gardner never came back, and it was just everything was overgrown, and he had just dozens and dozens of cars. And I ended up buying 6 of the cars from him, including a Saab Sonnet with the V4 in it, which was super funky. And then I got a 2 of the, you know what a Puma GTE is?
I've heard of it. I don't remember why.
So they're these Brazilian sports cars that were based on Volkswagens because back in the day, Volkswagen was like the only manufacturer that had factories in Brazil. So and then the government changed and you weren't allowed to import anything. Everything had to be built domestically. So everybody built like their own custom sports cars and stuff on variants of Volkswagen chassis because that's all they could get. So they built these really cool kind of Renault Alpine style type little 2-door sports fastbacks based on a Volkswagen pan. And the guy had 2 of them for some reason in California, which is super weird. So I got 2 of those from him. I got the Saab. I got a 65 Mustang.
Mm-hmm.
We got a BMW 5 Series with a roll cage in it and stuff, and then we got an old Volvo like P1800. Oh, and there was an Opel Kadett that he threw in too. So we had kind of a weird mix of cars.
Wow.
But yeah, and I think I paid like $4,000 for all of them. So it was just one of those kind of weird. I need him out of here. I think he had to move or something. So.
Holy cow, that's incredible. Now, out of all the cars you either mentioned or didn't mention, because you've had a million, which is one that you regret getting rid of?
That's pretty easy. I had a Moretti 124, which was a pretty unique car. They only built maybe a dozen or so of them, and they were built on a Fiat 124 chassis, and then Moretti coach built this kind of you know what the Ferrari Dino looks like,
yep.
Or the Fiat Dino,
yep.
The Fiat version, a little convertible.
Yep.
So it had very similar body lines to a Fiat Dino, but it had like a fastback roof. So it was a 2+2, very pretty little car. And it was one of those things where it was one of my crazy deals. I was driving around and I saw it sticking out of a corner of my eye behind a building, and the guy just wanted it gone. And I paid him like $500-600 for it. And I hauled it back from Costa Mesa back to Ontario, out to the ranch, and I started doing research on it and got involved with a bunch of Moretti people, and I tracked down like a windshield for it, and I tracked down all these rare pieces. And then this guy, like one of those, make me an offer I can't refuse, and he did, because he was a collector back east, and I ended up selling it to him at the time, and I kind of wish I hadn't.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll find another one day. They're pretty rare, but it was a neat car.
Those are the cars with the driver and passenger side windows are really tall, right?
Yeah, they're kind of funky. Like it's got like this really tall roof line, but then it tapers back to like a really very narrow tail section with like 2 just round tail lights.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very funky little car. All the Morettis from that era kind of look the same, whether they were based on the 850 or the 124 or the 131. They all kind of had a similar look to them. But this was a pretty well balanced, kind of pretty little car. The other car that I kind of wish I'd hung on to was I had a 65 Mustang Fastback that was black on black V8 car from the factory, and it was one of those kind of wild deals where this guy had called in when I worked at California Mustang. Was like, hey, do you guys buy cars? I was like, well, the company doesn't, but I do. And I went out and looked at it, and it was a 65 Mustang Fastback C code, factory Eaton power steering pump on it and everything. So it was a pretty well equipped little car, and it was again one of those things where the guy had. His grandfather had died. He had inherited all these cars, and this was like one of those. You always hear about like those old rich guys who have like those regular office buildings that are just filled with cars.
Yeah,
and that's what this was. Like there was old Aston Martins and old Lambos and Ferraris and all this stuff, and the junky American cars were just in the corner, and the kid didn't want them.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so I bought a 65 Fastback from him, and I bought a 66 Coupe, and I paid $1,000.
Oh my goodness!
For them. Yeah, I mean this is about 15 years ago, but still it was a steal.
Holy
and
crap.
the car had all. I mean, it was like time capsule, all original interior, original hubcaps still on it. I literally just washed it and cleaned it up, and it was at the time that Australia was buying Mustangs like crazy.
All right.
And I contacted a friend of mine. I was like, hey, what's a like mint condition 65 Fastback worth to you? And he's like, "Ugh," and it was again one of those things. It was like it was so much money at the time. It was like goodbye.
Yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
it was a good flip. But again, nowadays you can't find a fastback shell. You can't buy a VIN number to stick on your Dynacorn body for $1,000. So
Yeah. It's funny. My dad had and drag raced a '67 Mustang fastback
oh nice.
for forever. Probably in the late '80s, he did that, and yeah, he regrets getting getting rid of that.
Yeah. The Mustang's one of those cars. I've had almost all of them from 65 to 73. I've had a lot of Fox bodies, and it's one of those cars that like I wouldn't say like I have to have one, but I always end up coming back to them somehow. They're just again one of those kind of iconic cars that's always got something going for it. You can't really ever say no to a Mustang when a good deal pops up on one.
True. Now, okay, out of all these cars, again, you're at about 250 million now.
Yeah.
What is a car that you haven't owned that you wish you could own?
I like the weird stuff.
Yeah.
So, a car that I haven't owned a Lancia Scorpia yet.
Ooh.
Those are really cool. I think they were Monte Carlos in Canada, maybe. I know in Europe they were Monte Carlos. I don't know if they were Monte Carlos in Canada. But that was a car that I always. I've had a Lancia Beta Zagato,
Okay.
which was terrible, but it was super cool. But it was terrible. Like it was one of those cars that you would drive and it was like if everything was working and you had the top off and the little thing folded down the back and it was like the world was perfect. And then you turn the corner and it was just a pile of steam.
Yep.
So yeah, like that's just the Lancia experience. But the Scorpion was such a cool little sports, mid-engine sports car. I would love to have one of those. I think that's one that's on my list, and they're pretty obtainable. So it's not like they're just hard to find, and especially ones that aren't rusted out anywhere.
Yeah, of course. Now, sorry, what did you say your daily driver was now? Or did you say?
The daily right now is, it's a BMW 1 Series.
Okay.
So.
What cars are you looking forward to in the future? What manufacturers are you looking forward to creating something?
As far as like new cars that are coming
Yeah.
out? I was really excited about the new Ford Ranger coming to the U.S. actually for that midsize truck. Cause I always the only truck I've ever personally owned. I built quite a few for other people. I built one for my dad, but the only truck I personally owned was a Ford Courier.
Oh, really?
Which was the Mazda little mini truck from back in the 70s, and mine was like a 75 grabber blue. It was super cool. I really loved it because it was just this funky little truck. It was one of those things that when I would drive it, and I just had this a couple years ago, everywhere I drove it, somebody's like, my grandpa had one of those. 'Cause in the gas crunch, everybody got rid of their big trucks and bought Chevy Loves and Ford Couriers and Mazda B Series and the little Toyota mini trucks. So it was kind of a cool little conversation starter, really cool utilitarian type truck. But the new Ranger I'm pretty excited for. The new Ford Bronco I'm really excited for.
Yeah, that one looks awesome.
If it doesn't turn out to be like the new Chevy Blazer, I'll be really excited because I was so disappointed when I saw the new Blazer.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, come on. And they stuck the badge for some reason in the middle of the door, which I don't understand.
That's kind of strange. Yeah, we've been talking about the Blazers and the Broncos the past couple of weeks on the show. They're interesting. The new take on the old style of these trucks is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and have you seen some of these like custom ones people have been doing, like the F Series and like the Chevys, where they do the retro two-tone paint on them and stuff like that?
Oh yeah,
they look so cool. And like I remember growing up on the dairy in the farm area, we had like my uncle always had like one of those blue Chevy like C20s with the blue with the white stripe in the middle of it. And I was just like, I saw one of those the other day online. And I was like, oh, that is so cool! Just like instant memory flashback to like the old farm days. But I don't know. I mean, there's some classic cars I'm looking forward to hopefully finding. I really have been kind of wanting to find like an International Scout.
Oh yeah,
that would be really cool, like the original Scout, or even like a Land Rover like Series 1 or 2. I was down in Nicaragua and I saw like this like mint condition like sold in Nicaragua Land Rover, and I was just like, oh man, can I buy this and like how would I drive it home type of deal, because it was just so cool to see one like being used still out in like the jungles of Nicaragua. And I'm like, man, I need that in my life. They're just too cool.
Yeah. Now, I guess last question on the giant pile of cars. Yeah. If you were to only be able to drive one of them for the rest of your life, pick one, and what would that be?
Ooh.
Just one every day. This is your car for the rest of your life.
You know, honestly, just because it's so iconic and it's so just timeless, I would do a 65 Mustang convertible.
Okay.
A 65 or 6, that first generation Mustang convertible, like, it's just kind of the quintessential, like, American car.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite just cruisers. It wouldn't even have to be like a big V8. Like, they're just a really nice, clean, fun, sporty little car. And like, I think I could get by driving one of those every day.
It's funny that you would say that, and that would be impossible here. When I think
Yeah,
of a car that I have to drive the rest of my life, I'm like, well, I gotta drive it in the winter in the snow.
yeah.
That wouldn't work out so well with the Mustang, I think.
Nah, throw a couple bags of concrete in the trunk and go for it.
True, yeah. Some chains on the tires, and you're all set. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing a little
No,
piece of
thank
your
you for
car
having
history.
me. Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and it's always great. I love the podcast. I've been listening to you guys, and it's been awesome to be on here with you.
Cool. Well, everyone, please check out thegentlemanracer.com. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere, right?
Yep, yeah. Then pretty much, if you just search the Gentleman Racer, it should come up.
Awesome, Mike. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Today was a good episode with Mike Satterfield from thegentlemanracer.com. I appreciate him coming on today. Unfortunately, we didn't have Dan, my normal co-host, today, but he's a little bit out of commission. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. As always, we appreciate everyone who listens, our patrons, supporters on the Reddit and Twitter and Instagram. If you guys are not familiar with any of those, I ask you check them out. Thanks again, like I said, to our supporters on Patreon. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do this. So, big thumbs up to you guys. And new this week, new today, as of basically the release of this episode, you can tie your Patreon with your Reddit account and get some fancy schmancy flair on our Reddit page, r/myfirstcarpodcast. So check that out and post on there so we can see your cool flair. So thanks a lot, guys, for listening once again, and we'll be joined by Dan next episode. So thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you later. Goodbye.